This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, bringing you news, cultural, and educational programs. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra.
Freedom is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice of the rising sun.
From the leadership of the Biafra government in exile.
Good evening and welcome once again to our program this Sunday. I want to start by sending special greetings to every Biafran and friends of Biafra all over the world. Everyone who's been working incredibly hard towards the agitation for the restoration of the independent state of Biafra. It is the right thing to do. It is our duty, and by the help of God, we will achieve it. Let me begin by giving certain clarification in relation to some of the information we gave out in previous broadcasts. I want to be clear that unity is required in our struggle. Numerous groups and organizations that are agitating for Biafra, this is time for us to close ranks and to work together. We are making progress. A lot of alliances are being formed. A lot of people are coming together. But I want to be clear that Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, is one group, ably led by Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. We all know that he is being unduly detained by the Nigerian government. We all know that his detention is illegal. His extraordinary rendition from Kenya is illegal. And there is no way anyone should be held in solitary detention for this long without trial. In his wisdom and knowledge, Nnamdi appointed Simon Ekpa to speak on his behalf. That Biafrans should listen to him, IPOB members should listen to him. I give credit to Simon for carrying out this duty in the best possible way, with determination, with conviction, with all the strength that he can muster, because the job is a Herculean one, it's a difficult one. But he has embraced it with dignity, with purpose, and with truth. And I wish him well, and I continue to pray for the unconditional release of his leader, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Today I will sound a warning that was given about a decade ago by the leadership of Biafra Government in Exile and Biafra Foundation through Voice of Biafra International, broadcasting from Washington over 10 years ago. Those warnings are still real, those threats are still real, and even more pressing today. I urge every Biafran, friends of Biafra, to take these warnings very seriously. Our very existence depends on them. It is important that we understand and fight the Fulani jihad that is going on in the Middle Belt and southern Nigeria. 15 years ago, Biafra government in exile warned that the Fulani terrorists and the Sokoto Caliphate have perfected plans to overrun indigenous communities, take over their ancestral land, and Islamize them by force. BGIE made it truly clear that the plan was not only meant for Biafra, but the entire Middle Belt and the South too. So when the Caliphate and the jihadists started implementing this evil plot of land grabbing and Islamization, BGIE and Biafra Foundation raised the alarm over 10 years ago. Some clear examples exist. About 2 weeks before their planned attacks on places like Newman, Jalingo, Wukari, Shandam, southern Kaduna, and southern parts of Sokoto around Zuru, we warned that the attacks would happen. And guess what? They did. In the last 15 years, the land grab and Islamization plot of the Fulani jihadists have progressed massively and now have engulfed every square inch of territory in the Middle Belt, Eastern region and Western region, and even Lagos. What has the political, religious, military, social, cultural, and even intellectual leaders done to stem this catastrophe and save their people? Nothing. Note the large number of nations that are being terrorized, subjugated, and humiliated by a few million Fulani oligarchs and a handful of Hausa collaborators and lieutenants. Just take a look at them. The Birom people, the Bariba, the Busa, the Chamba, Edo, Efik, Ekoi, Gware, Ibibio, Ibaria, Ishekiri, Idoma, Ijo, Igala, Igbo, Nupe, the Maji, Tiv, Urobo, and the Yoruba. The population of these nations is more than 10 times that of the Fulani, who are terrorizing and humiliating them. Yet they remain cowed and slavishly subservient. Why is that? The answer is very clear: poor leadership. The leaders of these nations, out of fear, greed, avarice, blind hatred, lack of foresight, and especially psychotic ambition, allowed themselves to be hoodwinked and conned into unquestioning belief in the fantasy of one Nigeria. The Fulani, who are experts at corruption, corrupted these leaders with money, bribery and corruption, promises of political appointments. Once they corrupt them and they are compromised, they are plunged into the Maccabee song and dance of one Nigeria without ever asking for whom and for what. The Fulani set up straw enemies for them, and that enemy is called Biafra. Then asked these leaders, including religious leaders, to fight Biafra, their common enemy, with all the zeal they can muster and to the last ounce of their blood. And they do, killing 3 million Biafrans, starved 2 million children and old people to death, and killing another 1 million. Today, leaders of these nations, including those from Biafra, who perpetrated this genocide, are consumed by shame and disgust. but they have padlocked their lips, never to utter the words, "I am sorry. I was wrong." None of them, including some clergy, have had the humility to say sorry. I was wrong in committing genocide on innocent people of Biafra and believing slavishly in the fantasy of one Nigeria. It's unraveling now. We can all see today what is happening. Attacks even on Abuja as the terrorists and the jihadists close in. Let us put this aside for now, because all these nations are now facing serious threats to their very existence, to life, to liberty, and continued ownership and control of their ancestral land at the hands of Fulani land grabbers and jihadists. Even Hausa communities are increasingly experiencing terror at the hands of the Fulani. In every part of the Middle Belt and the South, communities are being savagely attacked and destroyed by Fulani mercenaries disguised as cattle herders. They kill men, women, and children, often in their sleep. They burn down people's homes, businesses, farms, and churches. They rape women and girls with impunity and destroy harvests stored in barns. They kidnap people on the highways and from their homes and demand millions of naira in ransom payments. Our children are afraid to go to school. Our men and women are afraid to go to their farms, churches, and businesses. Traders and business people are afraid to travel. And what has the Islamic Federal Government of Nigeria done about this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Recall that the primary responsibility of any government, federal or state, or local government, is to adequately provide for the safety and security of the lives and property of their citizens. In Nigeria today, every institution and instrument of security and defense is in the hands of the Fulani and is literally controlled and commanded by the Fulani. Every single one of them. Today, it is impossible to differentiate between Fulani mercenaries being shipped into the Middle Belt and southern Nigeria and the Nigerian army and police. They are one and the same. Citizens of the Middle Belt and the South are strictly forbidden to own, possess, or carry any weapons, including locally made guns. Infringement of this order of the Fulani Jihadist federal government of President Muhammadu Buhari carries very severe penalty. Yet, Fulani mercenaries pretending to be herdsmen openly carry automatic assault rifles slung over their shoulders, and they pass army and police checkpoints and roam over streets and forests. The Nigerian jihadist army and the police simply watch and salute them in bemused joy as they parade their assault rifles on their soil. Our question to the people of the Middle Belt and the South is, what do you think is happening? How is it that a few thousand Fulani mercenaries pretending to be cattle herders are terrorizing millions of us? This is what is going on in the Middle Belt and southern Nigeria. As this confusion and mistrust spread and take root, and the Fulani jihadists entrench themselves through such nonsensical pronouncements as Igbo presidency, Yoruba presidency, South-South presidency, Middle Belt presidency, and so on. How is it that a few thousand Fulani missionaries continue to terrorize us and deceive people so that they can grab people's lands? Millions of people living in their ancestral homes from southern Kaduna to Jos, and the east to Newman, then south to Calabar, to Opobo, to Port Harcourt, and on to Lagos, and all the land in between. How is it possible? Here is how Usman Dan Fodio, with a handful of Fulani Islamic jihadists, conquered, Islamized, and enslaved the Hausa states in the north in the early 1800s. Recall that the Hausa states were originally not Muslims. They practiced their traditional religion. But Usman Dan Fodio, while proselytizing Islam to them, set one community against another by accusing one of not practicing true Islamic teachings. As the two communities fought each other over who was practicing the true religion of the new religion, Usman Dan Fodio watched and soon identified the side that was winning the fight. He and his jihadists then joined them and subdued the losing side. Then he absorbed the fighters of the winning side into his jihadist army, killing off the leaders of the two communities by accusing them of corruption. He replaced those leaders with his Fulani brothers as emirs of the newly conquered territory, and then moved on to instigate same fights in other Hausa communities. This was how Usman Dan Fodio and a handful of Fulani Islamic jihadists swept through Sokoto, Zaria, Kano, Katsina, Kaduna, and Nguru before sweeping southwards to do the same thing in Gombe, Muri, Bauchi, and Yola. This is how you have Fulani emirs virtually enslaving and ruling with iron fists Hausa and other ethnic nationalities in their own homelands in all these places. This is how the Fulani established political control over a vast area of northern Nigeria. But they were unable to penetrate parts of Kanem in Borno, parts of Kebbi, Jukun Kingdom, Tiv, Idoma, parts of Oyo Empire, and the rest of southern Nigeria, including all eastern Nigeria, homeland of the Igbo, Efik, Ibibio, Ijo, Ogoja, the Urobos, Edo, as well as all of Yoruba land. Now they are poised to invade and take over these territories as Usman Dan Fodio did in 1804. How can they do this in this 21st century? It's simple. They have started using the same tactic used by Usman Dan Fodio in the early 1800s with slight modifications. What they are doing now is to instigate crisis in several communities in the Middle Belt, the Southwest and the Southeast, sometimes between two nationalities such as Igbo and Ijo, Urobo and Ishekiri, Ekiti and Ijebu, Nupe and Gwari. At other times, they focus on organizations in these different nations. For example, MASOB, IPOB, LNC, and PANDEV, NINAS, OPC, YNM. Most prominently, they use so-called political parties as well. They fan the embers of conflict and hatred among these groups. As these groups fight among themselves, the Fulani Islamic jihadists present themselves to one group as their supporter and savior. Then they use the leaders in these communities to deceive the masses into believing that they are truly their friends, allies, and even savior. They've done this in the Middle Belt, and they use things like presidencies to entice and deceive. As the people preoccupy their minds with these distractions, the jihadists strengthen their stranglehold in these areas, and soon the people begin to see the jihadists as their saviors from their neighbors, who they have been deceived into regarding as their enemies. By the time they realize their foolishness, it will be too late. They have been conquered. They have lost their freedom and liberty. Their land and private property have been taken away. They have lost their right to practice their Christian religion. They are now under the thumb of the Fulani emirs, who exercise the power of life and death over them. They now realize that whatever happens to their neighbors, the Fulani deceitfully convinced them to hate, is what is going to happen to them too. In essence, their destiny is intertwined with that of their neighbor. So whatever happens to the Igbo will happen to the Ijaw, will happen to the Efik, because their destiny is interwoven. So what should the people of the Middle Belt and South do now? Immediately. It's already too late. They have only one option, not two, to separate themselves from Nigeria now. Stop believing and pretending that you can fix Nigeria. It is impossible. You can't do it. Your survival depends on your willingness to establish independent states of Biafra, of Oduduwa, and the Middle Belt. The only option open to them, to everyone now, is to fight with everything available to them, be it referendum, plebiscite, or other means, and never stop until you have separated yourself from Nigeria and expelled every Fulani jihadist from your land. If you do not want to end up like the Hausa in the north, you must fight back now until you have expelled every jihadist from your territory. It will be long, it will be hard, it will be painful, and it will be disruptive. But this is the only option the peoples of the Middle Belt, Eastern and Western region have. Do it now, or wait and lose everything, from your land to your freedom to your religion. It is up to you. Those who want to continue to stay in one Nigeria should be free to do so. Very soon, the consequences will dawn on everyone, and it will be a very high price to pay. It will have a severe impact on future generations. So the actions we take today, very seriously, will determine whether we swim or we drown. Thank you, and God bless you for listening. Join us again next Sunday. God bless you, and may God bless and protect our nation, Biafra.
This is BCB.
This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, bringing you the news summaries for the week. In the news this week, from Channels TV, declare a state of emergency on security. Ndume tells federal government. We are tired of sit at home. Anambra residents lament. 2023, Archbishop Chukwuma makes a U-turn, says, I support the obedient movement. Stay tuned for the details coming up shortly. From Channels TV, declare a state of emergency on security. Ndume tells federal government. The chairman, Senate Committee on Army, Senator Ali Ndume, has called on federal government to declare a state of emergency and security. Ndume spoke on Channels TV's Sunday Politics, saying the government should prioritize the security of Nigerians. The earlier we prioritize this seriously and even declare a kind of state of emergency in the areas of security and welfare of citizens, the better for us, because this is what the government is all about, he said during the show. The Constitution is very clear that the purpose of the government is security and the welfare of its citizens. The earlier the government and the people of Nigeria in all the arms of government concentrate on making sure that our country is secure and our citizens' welfare is taken care of, the better for us. Nigeria is battling a myriad of security challenges, from banditry in the northwest to terrorism in the northeast, kidnapping for ransom in the southeast to oil bunkering in the south-south, culticism in the southwest to rape. Security forces are grappling with securing the lives and properties of over 180 million Nigerians. While successes have been recorded in the fight against criminal elements, Ndume believes better equipment for the army will aid their fight against insecurity. I will say it again, the purpose of government is security and welfare of citizens. The Nigerian army doesn't have the number. They don't have the equipment. They don't have the technology that is required to solve or handle these challenges we have, the lawmaker said. The senator representing Borno South Senatorial is, however, confident that the armed forces have all it takes to fight insecurity. He added, I will say again that the Nigerian army I know is up to the task, if given what they need. And if they're given what they need, they should be given a timeline. As for the action taken by the army, that is an action expected of them, but that goes to show in total that if the army has the number, the modern equipment that they require, they can tackle this problem within the shortest possible time. And our second headline from the Nation Online: we are tired of the sit-at-home, Anambra residents lament. The residents of Anambra have lamented that the sit-at-home restrictions imposed by some renegades of the indigenous people of Biafra are weighing down on them. Some of them, especially shop owners, said they are tired of sacrificing every Monday for fear of being attacked. Though commercial activities are gradually returning to Awka and Onitsha, the situation in Nnewi is still tight. However, banks and markets are still under lock and key. One of the commercial bus drivers, Nnamdi, told the Nation that people are fed up with what he described as imprisonment of residents. According to him, hunger has dealt with many homes since this nonsense started. They crumbled people's businesses, children no longer go to school, and workers' weekends extend till Tuesday. It's painful. Mrs. Mary, who sells food stuff in Ochanga Market in Onitsha, told the Nation on phone Monday that they still observe sit-at-home because of fear. According to her, she lost her goods worth over 28,000 naira on one of the days because hoodlums were moving around to monitor movements and attack harmless people. Anambra Commissioner for Information, Sir Paul Nwosu, said it was a gradual process, adding the major problem with some people is fear, despite Governor Chukwuma Soludo's full security assurance. And our final headline from the Daily Post: 2023, Archbishop Chukwuma makes a U-turn, says, I support obedient movement. The Archbishop of Enugu Ecclesiastical Province, Anglican Communion, the Most Reverend Emmanuel Chukwuma, on Monday said that the obedience movement of the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, has become a national project. He said that the popularity and acceptability was so high that the opponents and enemies alike would not be able to pull him down, no matter the campaign of calumny. Chukwuma, who was reacting to reports in the media quoting him as saying that Enugu State was not obedient, said he is not and has never been against Obi's presidential ambition, but rather has supported it more than those persecuting him. The Daily Post reports that the Archbishop has received much backlash after he said, "We in Enugu State are not obedient." The Archbishop has now said Obi's fame became so high because he showed credibility, character, honesty, capacity in public office as governor of Anambra State and other offices he had previously held. He said, "My own concern is that Peter Obi, found to be very credible, Nigerians should be out to make sure that young people should be given chance and allow him to clean the mess that we are in Nigeria. It is quite clear that in this country, people know me as speaking out. I've been condemning the evil in the society and in Nigeria. And we are very much aware that evil in my synod, I condemn the evil things happening in this government led by Buhari, and I meant it, and we need a new Nigeria. A new Nigeria, a new win, a new wine into new wine skin." Explaining himself, Chukwuma said, "There is no doubt that I said both Atiku and Tinubu are expired and they have no new things to offer us. And I talked about being obedient nationally. But this situation is that living in Enugu and seeing what has happened in the past years, where PDP has been in power for years and other parties have not surfaced until now, it has become very much necessary for people to know that Enugu, as it is, has been so entrenched into party called PDP. I totally support obedient nationally, but state-wise, I'm talking about personalities in the state, and I do know that those in the state that are not corrupt will be endorsed and voted by us. We are praying that the right people under God will come up in this nation to fight for positions that would make Nigeria to be better." And that brings an end to the news headlines for the week. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, saying thank you for listening and goodbye, friends.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Fellow Biafrans, this is Rose Ama, and this is BCB. And here is our opinion piece for this week. Beware, this is an unsafe place. In the publication of August 9th, 2022, titled Nigeria, Insecurity Grips the Nation's Capital, Attacks, Threats by Multiple Groups Raise Serious Concerns, Human Rights Watch described Nigeria as an unsafe place. According to the organization, quote, "A series of attacks and threats within close proximity of Nigeria's seat of government in Abuja by Islamists and other armed groups are causing fear and apprehension among citizens in the Federal Capital Territory, FCT," unquote. BCB, however, notes that this state of terrorism and fear has been the lived experiences of many people outside the Federal Capital Territory in the past few decades, beginning in the 2000s, a point which the Conversation Africa also notes. In the recent reiterations of the terrorism, and despite the loss of lives, the destruction of property, and the mayhem these Islamist and other armed groups, including the marauding, murderous Fulani herdsmen, have inflicted on communities in the Northeast, the West, Middle Belt, Biafra, and the Southeast, the federal government of Nigeria has remained silent, and its security apparatus has failed to stop these groups or curtail their activities. In fact, the general belief amongst many of the citizens of the failed state called Nigeria is that the federal government has colluded with these groups to terrorize the residents of the various regions mentioned above. In an absurd denial of reality, the government and citizens even began to call these terror groups unknown gunmen. But were they unknown? The Conversation Africa notes that, quote, at some point in the evolution of the violent gangs ravaging Nigeria, bandits and terrorists started being called unknown gunmen. The label was wrong and misleading, writes Salek Yaks Musa, a lecturer in criminology and security studies at the University of Jos in Nigeria. The atrocities and motivation of bandits had assumed insurgent-type criminality, and the Nigerian government's reluctance to call them terrorists or insurgents was unhealthy, unquote. In other words, the Nigerian government's inaction and refusal to condemn or arrest these terrorists further empowered them. Human Rights Watch notes, quote, the recent events unfolding in the capital confirms many Nigerians' fears that the threat from Islamist insurgents and other armed groups are now national threats that have reached critical levels, unquote, said Anieti Ewang, Nigerian researcher at Human Rights Watch. Then the article continued, quote, the ability of the groups to expand outside their base even to the nation's capital means that the authorities need to greatly expand their efforts to protect people, unquote. The Conversation Africa agrees with Human Rights Watch's findings, and concludes, quote, Nigeria now ranks among the kidnapping hotspots of the world. This practice has evolved among the bandits and terrorists of northern Nigeria, militants and cultists in the Niger Delta, as well as the ritual killers of the western and eastern parts of the country, unquote. The siege at the Federal Capital Territory is only the tip of the iceberg. One might even say it is the case of the hens or chickens coming home to roost. In their article, Human Rights Watch indicates that, quote, the authorities need to ensure adequate security for all citizens while respecting human rights, unquote. This seems to be a tall order, however, since neither the federal government of Nigeria nor its security forces nor some of the state governors recognize the rights of their residents. In fact, in a place where chaos is the order of the land or the law of the land, what does human rights mean after all? Although Human Rights Watch's article focuses on the terrorist attack at Abuja, the situation is symptomatic of larger problems. In fact, Ewang's underscoring of the expansion of the threats to other areas is important. While the researcher's comment comes a bit too late, it nevertheless highlights the experiences of those in other geographical locations that have been experiencing terrorism in the past decades, while Buhari and his cronies watch. Ewang's comment also emphasizes the ongoing threats to security and the lives of our people, especially in Biafra and the Southeast. We recall the recent massacre of a wedding party of young people by Hope Uzodimma through his security apparatus, Ebubago. In several of our previous programs, BCB has called attention to the state of insecurity that has gripped the land, but one that threatens our attempts to restore Biafra in particular. We have underscored the threats by the Fulani herdsmen, whom several of our governors and local politicians have welcomed into our land, selling or ceding our ancestral lands to them. Now, these roguish land grabbers are poised to run our people off their ancestral lands. Our people will become displaced people if we let these actions persist. In the past few months, IPOB leadership has also warned our local leaders, governors, and chiefs to stop selling or leasing our agricultural lands to these Fulani terrorists for their cattle. But if these leaders do not stop what they are doing, choosing themselves over the survival of their communities, it seems that now is the time for our people to save themselves. BCB underscores that such land sales to the Fulani herdsmen or their agents will render Biafrans homeless and landless. Note that the Fulani herdsmen are implementing Buhari's Ruga Ruga scheme. They will not return your lands. They will kill you and watch their cattle trample your bodies and those of your family members rather than return your lands. You will lose your ancestral lands forever. So, what stories will you tell the next generation and our ancestors about the land you lost? Article 3 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, quote, everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of person, unquote. Nigeria is a signatory to this declaration. As such, all states in that entity called Nigeria are also signatories. This means that they too cannot violate this declaration. Biafrans and Southeasterners and everybody in Nigeria have the right to protest any laws, policies, or persons who violate those rights. But Nigeria has not accorded us any security, especially in Biafra land and the Southeast. BCB wishes to remind our people and listeners to be vigilant, organize neighborhood watch groups to protect and defend your communities against those who want to uproot you, whether they are outsiders like the Fulani herdsmen or internal threats. You have the right to defend yourselves against any attempts to annihilate you. Exercise those rights. We thank you again for spending some time with us today. Like us on Facebook and Twitter, like us on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so. You can also reach us by email at bcb1967biafra@gmail.com. This is Rosama. Let's get wiser. And this is BCB.
Rising soul, hey, rising soul, yeah. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Believe it or leave it, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. We've been crying, the world claim not to hear. And we've been lamenting, the world claim not to hear. Our tears flow, the world claim not to see. And our blood flow, the world claim not to see. This is a crime, oh no, against humanity, oh no, yeah, this is a crime. Eritrea spoke up, they were given independence. South Sudan spoke, they were given independence. Namibia spoke up, they were given independence. Give me the reason my people got to be neglected. Give me the reason my people got to be rejected. Give me the reason our freedom got to be a crime. Give me the reason our own freedom got to be denied. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Believe it and live it. Oh no. Oh. That was physical battle, and we're betrayed by the people them trust. Today's heroes are fighting. This is a spiritual battle. Let us unite and give Biafra a meaning. If we don't take time, we can't remain in this slavery. No freedom of speech, no freedom of expression, no freedom of worship, no freedom of religion. Justice denied. Oh no, of my own very people. Hey. Justice denied. Hey. On the rising sun. Hey. Justice denied. Oh, my freedom fighter. Yeah. What is so bad? My people wanna be liberated. What is so bad? My people wanna be independent. What is so bad? My people wanna be alone. This is the time we will make it known to the world. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hospitality, positive, education, positive, economic, positive, hospitality. I tell you what, positive. Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Biafra is the only hope of Africans. I tell you what, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. Hey, Biafra is the only hope of Africa. My people will cry. Biafrans will cry. My people are suffering. Oh, Biafrans are
Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Hail to Biafra.